Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So on the agenda tonight, we have Steve Rothery, and this is going to be coming from 2014, and it's going to be with his band, and this is going to be The Old Man of the Sea. So let's get Steve up on screen and see how he gets on. I'm just going to jump in here because talk about setting a scene. Just such an atmospheric sound to the performance so far. And what I love about Steve's playing is the absolute control of vibrato is a technique that I mention all the time. But this performance in itself shows you exactly how important vibrato is. There's no hint of a whammy bar here on the fixed bridge. This is all coming from Steve's left hand. The way that he's expressing through the guitar and giving every note personality. Steve's also swelling in the notes here with that volume pedal, which we've had. It's a technique that we've seen quite a lot on this channel, but it just gets rid of that initial attack of the pick on the string because that's an aggressive sound. And to get rid of that, obviously picking the string in silence and then swelling in that volume means that you're going to get that ghostly quality. It's going to sound a lot smoother and it's going to suit this kind of atmospheric sound. Just a word on Steve's playing and his approach to playing, because when he was 15 years old he started playing the guitar, which you could argue is quite a late starter in itself, but then by the time he was 20 he then auditioned for Marillion, and because he got that position he then started to work on melody, and he has said himself that he started to move away from the technical high-end practice that he'd put in and now start to practice being more melodic and more expressive with his playing. And I personally love that approach because it's the way that I see playing guitar guitar as being a melodic instrument in terms of trying to emote through the guitar, getting your guitar to sing and speak to an audience, giving it a voice. And so many people tend to put so much emphasis on the technicalities of playing. When they've learned a particular run, they'll then see how fast they can get that run, and then instead of moving on to something else, they'll see if they can get that run a little bit faster. And then once they've got that really fast, a little bit faster again. And there's so much time spent on one run, one technique, when they could have spent so many other hours on expression and playing slowly. Because how many players out there sit down and practice 3 to 4 hours a day on expression and melody, and just the whole appreciation of dynamics here we've got across the board, because it is so cool starting like this, gradually bringing in those drums, and I guarantee later on in the track he'll be adding a little bit more distortion, maybe some speed playing as well, getting a little bit of a light and shade, because of course he's worked on his speed techniques, but he hasn't sacrificed anything else in order to get that speed up. But let's have a little look at some more. I'm just going to jump in here quickly again, because we had a little section in there where Steve is intentionally letting the track breathe. How many times do you see that? It is so rare to see somebody compose something with an appreciation of putting in silence, because sometimes what you don't play is just as important as what you do play. So many players make the mistake of just playing all the time. If it's a 4-minute track, they'll play a 4-minute solo, and there's never any chance of the track breathing, whereas that's exactly what we've got here. And just to quickly explain, Steve's now getting into his MIDI sound, which is something that I have spoken about before, where you can get a MIDI pickup on your guitar, which turns that audio information into MIDI information and then sends it to an effects processor, MIDI processor. So it means that you can now attribute any effect you want to the sound of your guitar. It's effectively turning your guitar into a keyboard, or almost into a USB keyboard, MIDI keyboard that you can attribute any sound to. So it really does open up the possibilities for any sound you want to have. You can now have it on your guitar, and you can just hear it very subtly in the background of Steve's playing. He's still got that guitar in the mix, but you can start to hear that MIDI triggered sound in the background as well. But let's get back into it. Just quickly jumping in here to mention the dynamics, the way that we've now totally opened up. The journey's always evolving, always moving forward, and the dynamics now opening up. And we also saw the way that Steve there added on a little bit more overdrive, a little bit more distortion in the sound now, and started to speed up his playing a little bit. Again, that light and shade. We've had quite a long time on these long expressive notes, which is great. And then it's great also to throw in a little bit of speed here and there just to mix it up again. It's just keeping that interest all the time. Another thing you would have noticed is the crowd all just sitting there, and I sometimes mention on other videos with up-tempo tracks by rock bands and the audience is just sitting there, and I say, how can you sit there and not get into it? Whereas this is the exact opposite, where there is so much on show technically, dynamically and compositionally that you can get into so many different aspects of the performance that you need to sit down, listen to it and take it all in, because there is so much going on. I don't want this video to go on for too long. We're not going to be able to watch the whole thing. I'm going to put the link to this in the description below so you guys can check out the whole thing if you want to. But just a quick shout out to Dave Foster, who's playing guitar here, and this is now going into his little solo section, and we'll just watch that and try and see a little bit more of Steve as well. I'm just going to jump in here. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to have time to sit here and watch the whole thing. Talking about melody and expression, it's no surprise that Steve actually names Steve Hackett and David Gilmour as big influences of his style of playing. And you can absolutely see that. And you can tell that he's worked on his techniques to play slowly and to get every note to express and to mean something. But Steve also fits into that bracket of just being a really emotive player. So if you haven't heard of Steve, or you have and you haven't really checked out much of his stuff, listen to his stuff with Marillion, but also his solo stuff as well, because everything there is just all about the melody. You will never get Steve playing something for the sake of it or playing to show off. He's not one of those guys, but one of those players that I really admire and love the sound of. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!